Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Varun Ganapathi. Varun is the co-founder and CTO at AKASA. Varun, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. So, Varun, let's start with a little bit of background on yourself. Can you give us a quick overview of what your journey in technology has been like? No, just 2 or 3 minutes on where you got started to what's led you to where you are today.
I started working on machine learning when I was an undergrad at Stanford, working on physics. I was actually majoring in physics as an undergrad. I got really excited about machine learning. I was working with Andrew Ng on how to make helicopters autonomous, like autonomous maneuvers, like flying upside down and things like that. And as an undergrad, I started working on algorithms for how to learn from a human being how to perform feats like that. After that, I went to Google, where I was working on Google Books, where they were scanning all of the world's books. And they were, having lots of people label the pages and label information about the books, like title, copyright, extracting a bunch of information. I thought maybe I can leverage what I learned in machine learning there. So I applied an algorithm to do it. This was back in 2004, back when machine learning wasn't as super popular and it wasn't the obvious thing to do back then, I guess, or not obvious all the time. And the algorithm worked amazingly well. It was like 99.2%. I looked at the errors and it turned out most of them were actually mistakes in the data. In other words, the algorithm was superhuman. Like it was like actually 99.9% accurate. So I got extremely excited about machine learning, went back to Stanford to do a PhD working with Sebastian Thrun and Daphne Koller. During my PhD, I focused on algorithms for computer vision. Started a company during my PhD that we went out to raise money and then we got acquired by Google basically instantly. So I went to Google, became a research scientist there, finished my PhD while I was at Google. After a few years, I left Google to start another company, this time in the cloud computing space called Terminal.com, sold that to Udacity ultimately. The main purpose of the company was online education and helping people, learn machine learning, which, something I was very passionate about. While I was at Udacity, I was thinking about where are really good places for AI? Like where can AI make the world a better place? What is something meaningful I can work on? And healthcare just stuck out in my mind because it's making people healthier is just, I feel like an unambiguously good thing to do. And it felt like if we could help do that, that would be great. And so we decided to focus on how could machine learning make healthcare better? How could we make it a better experience for all patients and so on? And that's how AKASA got founded, is by taking that angle and looking at what could we do.
Great segue into the formation of AKASA. I appreciate you setting it up in that way. So here we are today, just over 3 years into AKASA. Taking a step back, giving us a high-level overview, what is the mission of AKASA, and give us an overview of just how you're trying to achieve that mission.
The mission of AKASA is to build a future of healthcare with AI. And that's the broad vision. And so a lot of things fall into that category. At the beginning, we're focusing on, if you look at healthcare and you look at what it takes to deliver good healthcare, part of that experience is really the financial part. It's like, how do patients not have to worry about surprise bills? How can hospitals not waste a ton of time on the parts of healthcare that are literally just accounting or bureaucratic and getting paid for what they do? Can they focus instead on delivering care? And so right now, one of our biggest areas is using machine learning to help improve the quality of and or automate a lot of the paperwork involved with getting claims paid and things like that. In addition, we're working on things like prior authorization, and we've actually deployed solutions where we actually help save doctors a ton of time and nurses tons of time in submitting these requests to get paid from insurance companies. Instead of having to do that by hand, algorithms can help them do that in many cases, so that they can, again, just focus on actually providing healthcare to patients, which is, where honestly, I think everyone really wants to spend their time and why they get into healthcare. So that's broadly speaking AKASA's mission, and that's what we're doing today.
So can you walk us through what it actually means to implement AI in healthcare, particularly in tackling those more mundane, repetitive, high risk of failure, inaccuracy projects. How are you guys tackling that problem? What were the steps to get there?
First part is identifying what are the actual things to be automated. There's a lot of work being done. We want to approach it using an 80-20 rule by essentially figuring out what are single types of tasks that take up a lot of the time that people are spending. And so we have special methods for observing what people are doing and learning from that, and also talking to them and figuring out like where are they spending their time. We can also pull out data from the system and figure out what are the most common tasks that are being done. Once we do that, the next step is to model that in our solution and figure out a way to pull data out of their systems, perform whatever action that needs to be done. And often this involves interacting with insurance companies and interacting with health system EHRs and so on, figuring out how to automate those tasks and actually, at least before we're even fully automating it, figuring out how to categorize it as the work to be done, like what is actually happening here. And at that point, what we do is we actually have people label the data, much like in the self-driving car world, where people, a lot of self-driving car companies hire drivers to drive cars around, or Tesla has all of us just driving their cars and are able to learn from observation of how people are doing a task. And so similarly, we learn from how people perform these tasks. And that's when we start to build out machine learning algorithms. So we train the algorithms to essentially produce the same output given the same input. And the idea is like once that happens, we can start to slowly swap out the work that people have to do with what the algorithms are doing instead. So that's at a very high level, the approach. And it's honestly the approach to machine learning, how it's deployed in general. It boils down to two parts: is getting the data and then developing the algorithms, and then of course monitoring the performance of the algorithms. This is another tricky part, which is to make sure that as the world changes, your algorithms continue to perform well. And that's a part where it's a black art, but basically it's lots of statistics and also random sampling in order to observe what's happening as it happens and determine is everything still working well or not. And that's super vague, but it's a very tricky thing in and of itself.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
I want to spend a bit of time now, Varun, understanding the journey over the past 3 years, because shortly after you launched the business, we had COVID and all of the challenges that faced. Can you walk us through what the 3 years have been like from first concept to early stage to where you're at now as a business, and help us visualize just how much you've grown and what it's like to be part of the team as of January 2022?
AKASA has grown very rapidly over the last 3 years. I don't know what I can, the best way to probably measure that is we've done a series of rounds where we raise a seed, a series A, and a series B each year from extremely good venture capitalists. Our company, the number of employees has grown from 4 founders to 150 people over the span of 3 years. We're growing very rapidly. And of course, there's a commensurate customer growth in order to justify all of that. It's been a very interesting journey in that healthcare is generally speaking, it's a hard space to make changes. But what's actually been great is that the work we do is really welcomed by health systems. COVID has actually made it even more clear why things like automation are super important, because there are certain actions that just have to get done, no matter what. And the great thing about AI is that it can scale up and down with the work that's available. In cloud computing more generally, we use the cloud to have elastic compute, right? Like when we have more visitors on our website, we can, startups can automatically allocate more instances in the cloud to serve a larger traffic. And then as traffic decreases, they can actually scale down and this is, obviously the huge benefit of the cloud, and we know how huge cloud computing is. What AKASA is doing is bringing the same thing to labor itself in certain domains, of course, but the idea is that can you scale up and down your labor pool of AI agents, essentially, in order to handle large, drastic upticks and downticks of work in a very scalable way? And in COVID, that became extremely important in particular because the amount of work both went down a lot and then all of a sudden spiked up because people were initially avoiding hospitals and then they were coming back to hospitals. One of the things that AKASA did that was really great is we helped with helping health systems get reimbursed for COVID vaccination. All these people were suddenly getting vaccinated. It created a ton of work to do, and it was unusual work. It wasn't the same as it always was before because COVID vaccinations was new. And AKASA actually helped a lot of our customers handle that dramatic increase in load and essentially enable them to not have to worry about it. They were super behind on all of that, and we were able to help them to deal with that. So that is what the last 3 years have been like. I think it's been a tough time, obviously, for all of us, but it also has made clear like how important healthcare is. And it's made me even more excited about what we do because we're really making a difference there.
As it should. And I think to be able to go from founders to 150 people and have 3 successful rounds of funding during the past 3 years really speaks to just how big an impact AKASA is having. And it sounds like an exciting place to be. You and I were speaking before the interview about what's next, and it again very exciting. So can you give us some insight into what 2022 and beyond looks like, particularly through the lens of what opportunities there are going to be for people who are interested in coming on board and joining? Who do you need to hire, and what do you look for when you're hiring?
Yeah, the next year really looks like we need to hire a lot of amazing data scientists, machine learning engineers, and general platform software engineers. All of the work, the large amount of customer growth has created a large, of course, like we have a lot of things to do in-house. And so we're trying to grow really rapidly. There's a lot of opportunity for growth and learning at AKASA because we're growing really fast. If you're a very good engineer, you will quickly get a lot of responsibility. If you're interested in management, that will be very available. I know sometimes when you're an existing company that isn't growing so fast, it's hard to move up because a lot of the time growth happens because the company overall is growing. And so you can grow just by virtue of the company growing around you and you just move up. That is happening at AKASA. So if you're someone who's looking for a high career growth trajectory, AKASA would be an awesome opportunity for you, I would think. The other great thing is a lot of people are really excited about machine learning and also machine learning in healthcare specifically. At AKASA, we are focusing on that completely. And machine learning is core to our business, right? It's actually the point of the company is to help automate a lot of these tasks. And as someone who's interested in machine learning, even if you're not a machine learning expert today, at AKASA, you will be able to work closely with machine learning engineers. And we strive to make sure everyone is learning all the time. And so we have these sessions where people can learn more about how our algorithms work, potentially contribute to them. It's basically a great opportunity for a lot of learning and a lot of growth for any engineer or machine learning or data scientist. So that's what I would say. That's what the next year looks like. And hiring is hard. I think a lot of people are trying to hire right now. A lot of people are moving around, but I think AKASA would be a uniquely good opportunity because it's a startup that's growing very quickly. And it's also in a very interesting area, at least in my opinion.
You're absolutely right. And I think the evidence is in the consistent level of growth that you guys have had over the past 3 years. We speak to companies all day, every day, who are looking to hire the best and brightest in the world of AI. And it's bloody difficult. You guys have done a stellar job so far, and I'm sure that's going to continue. Final question from me then, Varun. We talked a lot about the mission, the growth, the environment, and culture, and the impact that machine learning and AI can have to healthcare, much of which is very exciting. When you look ahead for the next few years, the next chapter of the business, what are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to about the future of the company?
I'm excited about a lot of things. I think I would love to figure out how we can be even more helpful to hospitals in providing AI to them. And I think there are a lot of different ways to do that. And I'm just excited about increasing our footprint. There's a lot of hospitals in America and there's a lot of space to grow. So I'm really excited about growing the company, providing as much value as we can. And long term, I would love to see how AI can be beneficial in all sorts of ways in healthcare, providing information to doctors earlier so that they can help make the best decisions. Those are the sorts of things that really get me excited.
Varun, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. Very much appreciate it. It's very impressive what you and the guys at AKASA have been able to do in such a short space of time. And it sounds like you're only getting started, which is amazing. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at AKASA the best of luck in the years ahead. And we look forward to seeing what you guys can accomplish. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.